and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest right after this.
Justice for you and me. Justice for Mike Brown.
No justice, no peace.
After the death that shook the entire country, I decided to step up as a community activist and create a global podcast, Woke by Accident. Here, I amplify compelling news stories and matters impacting African Americans and their communities. My goal is to give a voice to the voiceless and have the difficult conversations needed to advance relations and matters of race. Tune in to Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen, and it is streaming on all of your favorite streaming platforms, as well as our website, www.wokebyaccident.net. Thank you for listening and take care.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, Michael T. Williams, host of the Real Talk, Real Solutions podcast, and he also has a YouTube channel, Microphone Mike. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, good to have you back on. Guys, Mike was on the show previously. I meant to have those episodes handy, but he's actually been on about 2 or 3 times. So I'm glad to have Mike back as we wrap up the year and get into a really impactful story that has touched all of our hearts. So we want to get into the story of Shanquella Robinson. So definitely glad that Mike reached out so that we can have this conversation with you guys. Shanquella Robinson died in Cabo, Mexico during a trip with a group of 6 friends on October 29th. And Robinson died as a result of this trip. Death certificate found indicated that she died from suffering a broken neck and a severed spinal cord injury, and her shocking death has captured the hearts and minds of millions nationwide. And we've been seeing a hashtag justice for Shanquella trending on social media, demanding justice. There have been several updates recently. The killing of Shanquella Robinson is now being investigated as a femicide, which is a gender motivated crime. Okay, and so there's been an update. So Mike is going to join us as we talk about the update, what went wrong, issues with international travel, having a medical emergency internationally, and then also about the friends involved in this trip and situations that come up when people go on these friends trips abroad. So definitely want to bring Michael into the conversation regarding the update. Tell us about what you've heard as far as the update on this story.
What I've heard is about the arrest warrant for Dejanay. And I think that was like one of the bigger and more important things like about the case, because it's like showing that justice is on the way. And not good news for her, because Mexican jails are probably not pleasant places. And then the court system is quite different, because what I've been hearing is that there's no jury or anything like that. Like, you only literally have 2 court appearances. I heard that the first time is basically like an arraignment where you appear before the judge and the prosecutor will tell you what your charges are. And the second time, you will be sentenced by the judge. And I believe it will be like up to 6 months later between those two court appearances.
Wow, I'm glad you brought that up, because that totally brings up in my mind Brittany Griner and what's going on with her. And that basically is the same kind of scenario that she experienced over there, with being arraigned and then bam, being sentenced with a harsher sentence, trying to appeal it and that kind of thing. It's definitely a different story when you're international, facing a crime like this.
Definitely. And you have to really be on your best behavior when you are going on these international trips
Hmm.
because you know, I think a lot of people have a certain attitude as like Americans and we're known a certain way like around the world. So I just think on these trips you really have to be careful and be on your best behavior. For anybody that's listening to this, have fun, but you know, be on your best behavior. That's what I would say.
Definitely. And I know I've been discussing this case with some people on Clubhouse and things like that, different discussion groups. And a lot of people had some sympathy for the accuser in this case because apparently after even before they announced the charges, people went online and found like where they worked at and their LinkedIn and things like that and reached out to their employer, and I think people lost their jobs and things like that. I don't know if you've heard stories like that, that they kind of faced a lot of attacking online.
No, I heard that I never knew people reached out to their employers, but I honestly don't have sympathy for these people because the behavior was like very reprehensible. Like
Mhm.
I have no sympathy for them. Do you?
I don't have a lot of sympathy in that regard either. The person that mentioned it had, went through something similar, and I guess they're just saying, the charges haven't even been announced. But you and I know that sometimes charges never get announced, and that doesn't mean that a crime didn't happen and that someone doesn't need to suffer a crime. So, I mean, um, I try to follow the laws of the land, for the most part. So if something went online where they were being um, bullied or something like that, I mean, and we see that with a lot of these people that get stories pulled about them in the news for whatever the case is, different Karen stories. People will find out where they work at and flood their employer or friends and their social media and things like that. And apparently that happened with this case. We just wanted the family to get justice so that, I mean, I guess I'm not so concerned with what the friends face because they, like you said, behaved in such a reprehensible manner. And really, did they show a lot of care and love toward the deceased in this case? I don't think so. So, yeah, I don't have I don't have a whole lot of sympathy in that regard either.
No, they showed no care.
Yeah.
You could just tell. I don't know what this was about, and I think we are all kind of like assuming at this point, but it
Mhm.
does seem like they may have been envious of her. I don't know why, we all assume why, but they, I, there's nothing to sympathize here with.
Right. I mean, if they face that kind of, response online, then, that's just what it was because, you or I could, start getting comments from people online and that's just what it is. So, I mean,
Right.
but in this case, the being deceased, from my understanding, she did something with was it celebrity hairstyling or something like that. So she may have like model work or something like that. Did you
Yeah, I
see a
heard
lot
she
of
had like three successful businesses.
okay. Yeah, so very successful lady, but getting hooked up with these friends, what do we think about that? I saw a post that kind of mentioned some of the actions of the friends. And so I wanted to take a look at, you know, are these really friends? Are these toxic friends? What do we think about that?
Oh my God. So she was friends with the one Khalil, what's his last name? Cook, I believe the main best friend, Khalil. I
Okay.
know that's his first name, Khalil. She's been friends with him. They have a picture that dates back to 2012. So
Hmm.
she's known him like a long time. And I just find I know that men and women can be friends, but as far as their relationship, I almost feel like he may And I'm going off of a post that I saw between them. I kind of feel
Okay.
like maybe he had a thing for her, perhaps, and she didn't want
Okay.
him. I don't know. I'm just drawing my own conclusions from what I see, but it seemed like a weird kind of like relationship. But and once again, I felt like he was very envious of her, I think, too.
Yeah. And then there were two guys on the trip, is that right? Or
I believe there were a total of three.
okay,
There
three guys.
was you remember there was the one guy who was saying giving his itinerary information, Nazir, and
Okay.
then there was her friend and one other gentleman that was there as well. That was the one that was saying, Quella, fight back. That was he was the third gentleman. Aren't you
Mm,
gonna at least fight
mhm.
back?
Okay. And then, so yeah, we had the comments of the friends making comments in the fighting video. And then there was one video about someone like mocking her sleep, saying something about a dead body. So I guess that was one of the gentlemen on the friend.
That
And I
was
guess
her
there
best
was,
friend, her
okay.
alleged best friend,
And
filming
that,
her on her phone while she was asleep in a hammock, and he was saying, "We got our first body."
yeah, that was very odd. What did you think about that one?
Creepy, odd, and it definitely supports the theory that they were like out to get her because what a coincidence. But I don't believe in coincidences, but it's like wow, compelling kind of. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it definitely struck me as odd, and I just feel like really that everything is going to come out at one point or another, and it may take, you know, and like you said, it's going to be different in this case because it's international. We're not going to have like the traditional trial where we see all these different witnesses go back and forth and things like that. It's really going to be up to the judge. They probably obtain statements, and they're just going to make their decision of what to do with the main accuser. Um, but I just feel like everything will come out in the end since there were so many people involved, people making videos here and there, and then people sharing to different blog sites. I feel like we will eventually get the story.
I think so. And I feel like it's not going to be anything, nothing is real. Well, I feel like it's not going to be anything serious. I feel like it's going to be something silly that could have really been worked out too. I don't think it's going to be some big thing. It's going to be something really kind of immature and childish that happened.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know like what was the big fight about because it was a big throwdown. I mean, it was nothing, it was very um well, obviously it resulted in someone breaking bones and things like but what was behind this, and then if it was something small for the other friends to film and not intervene in any way and actually egg it on, that definitely takes on the characteristic of toxic, in my opinion. So I hate that for her, that it was that type of trip, or she that type of experience that she literally, like they had just got there. They hadn't even been there to like go shopping or go to dinner or any of the things that people do on these types of trips. Like day one, like what happened? What went wrong?
And then for you to be egging it on, you have to have like a certain amount of dislike for that person yourself to not like break it up or something. You have to, in a way, kind of feel like they had this coming. And then another aspect, they're saying she paid for the whole villa. And I don't know if this is true or not, but they said possibly the other people's airline fare as well. And I
Oh
personally would go
wow.
on a trip like that. Well, I would want to contribute. I definitely, if they were paying for my plane ticket, no, probably not the whole villa either. Like, I wouldn't allow somebody to do all of that. That's too much.
It's possible because I attempted to go on a girls trip that was unsuccessful, and there is talk of people saying, "Well, you front this person and we'll pay you back on Cash App on Thursday or Friday," and Thursday and Friday never comes. You know what I mean? So it could have been a scenario where, oh, you know what I'm saying? It's not a good scenario for people involved, and I won't share anything else other than sometimes Friday and Thursday never come to get paid back, basically, and someone gets the short end of the stick. So, and then sometimes you don't even know everybody well. You may know these people over here really good, and then you got a third person because you need so many people. So for the cost and things like that, that you have somebody, oh, I don't really know her that well, but she willing to go and she got her money, and things like that. You've mentioned you've been on friends trips or international travel. Did any how was that for you, your experience doing that?
I've had a lot of good ones, and then I've had like a lot of bad ones. Well, a lot of bad ones. Like I went on a trip to. I was supposed to be. Well, I was going to, and this was right before the pandemic happened in 2020. Like I was going to London and Paris, and I had just like met a new friend, and I mentioned to him that I was going. He mentioned that he wanted to go on the trip, but the friendship like was about to end. You know how like you first kind of meet people and then the vibe is not well and it's not really connecting. And I didn't want
Okay.
to tell him no, but like I started feeling guilty because I was just going to end the friendship just in an effort to not say no. But I ended up just saying yes. But it ended up becoming, it was like a disaster. So much happened like on the trip. And by the time we were leaving, we we would see each other like in the airport and not even speak. And I still haven't seen him to this day.
Oh wow.
But then on the flip side, like I've had good, enjoyable trips with people. Like I had a
Mhm.
fun trip. It was with like 6 people. We went to San Juan, Puerto Rico. That was like a year and something ago. And it was a very good trip, like one of the best trips I ever had. So you definitely have to know, I would say, know these people well. And I still believe in friendship. A lot of people are saying this is why they don't have friends, but I still believe in the institution of friendship. Like you just have to know who you are
Mhm.
dealing with. And I feel like she didn't know who she was dealing with.
Definitely. With being 5 and 6 friends, she knew some of those guys, like, grew up and went to school with some of them, but maybe some of the ladies she didn't know as well. So that could possibly have been a factor in, what went wrong in this case. I had mentioned wanting to touch on issues with international travel and having a medical emergency over there. I know I've read and heard from people that when you call an ambulance over there, that your health insurance doesn't work the same way as over here, and that sometimes you're asked to pay up front, and it's a lot of money for that.
I could definitely see that being the case in a country like Mexico, perhaps.
Mhm.
Thank God, I've never had like a medical emergency anywhere I've gone to, but I could see that being the case like in Mexico, for sure. But probably not like in like if you were to go to Europe or you know some other more. I guess I don't want to say like developed countries, but more like Western kind of like countries that are similar to the United States. Um, that could very well be the case in Mexico. I can definitely believe that.
Right. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of information on the website US Air Ambulance that mentioned that um, sometimes you are asked to prepay for treatment. So that could have been part of the reason why they denied her getting an ambulance initially when she was getting seen for medical treatment or what have you. So, but you hate that, that would be something that could have potentially made it where she could have survived this had she gotten the care.
Ultimately, though, I do believe it might have been an attempt to extort money from the family because there
Mm,
are also talks about she had a certain amount of cash on her. I've heard different amounts
mm.
that was taken as well,
Yeah, that's
along with credit
horrible.
cards.
Yeah, that's awful. Then talking about the actions of these individuals or friends that were with her, lying to the family, making the video and the comments and things like that. The fact that they left her, and
Mhm.
things like that. I know everything's expensive, but what was been the proper way to handle it? It seemed like it would maybe one person could have stayed back until a family member was able to be present. What are your thoughts about them leaving her like that?
Definitely, at least, like, if not everybody, at the very least, I would say one person definitely stay behind until the family gets there. Now, if somebody would have had a passport in that family to be able to get there, because I think the mother right now, the mother or the father doesn't have a passport because, and I
Mm,
guess they're going to try to get one like relatively soon because they're going to be going back and forth to Mexico.
right.
But somebody definitely should have stayed behind. Everybody should not have left.
Definitely. And then again, it's kind of hard to say how have could this have been prevented, but just in for discussion purposes, how could this have been prevented? If maybe I feel like maybe if one of the friends would have intervened in the fight or something like that, you know.
Yeah, if somebody had intervened and if people had been more mature, like these, you would think like 25, like you would know better and know how to act and stuff because it's young, but that's like really adulthood, like at
It
25.
is. Yeah, some people are done with college, they live on their own, they have a real job, yeah.
And somebody
So
there was 27. So
definitely old enough to behave in a manner because I mean, like you said, this girl is facing some very serious, charges and this, her family won't be able to come see her. Like she's gonna be alone over there. This is very serious.
she probably won't survive long because the Mexican jails are ran by the cartel and you have to constantly pay them to have protection.
Oh god, that's horrible. Yeah, I cringe at the stuff that Brittany Griner is going over or going through in Russia with the war going on and things like that, and that's not a positive experience. So in Mexico, it's probably even worse, like mentioning the cartel.
Yes, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You have to be careful when you're traveling because, like, obviously, Brittany Griner didn't deserve 9 years, but
Right.
I felt like if you had like just made sure you had nothing that they could get you on, you would have been better off. But definitely not deserving of 9 years.
Right, but yeah, like you said, you have to check everything, from heading to the airport to leaving, and while you're there, your behavior is definitely have to check yourself if you're going to make this type of trip, for sure.
CYA, CYA.
Definitely. All right. Yeah. So I think those are all the updates. Any other updates that you want to touch on in this conversation?
Not that I'm aware of, but ultimately, like I would say, guys, still take your trips. Your friends are your friends, you know your friends. And if it's new people, I say beware, but I feel like this is an extreme circumstance. Like this is an extreme circumstance. Your average trip probably is going to be your average trip. And I still believe in friendship, but just get to know the others that you don't know a little bit better. Like I would say, even like have a if you're going on a trip to Dubai with a bunch of people you don't know, just be like, okay, well, can we all like go out to eat or something like one time before this trip to kind of fill out the vibe? So that's one thing you could do.
Yeah, definitely have those conversations, maybe phone numbers and making sure that people have each other's family contacts and just having a few conversations like you said about this ahead of time before you actually get on the plane.
Yes.
I did want to mention that I thought it was cool that Irvin was noted as donating to the GoFundMe for Shanquella Robinson, and that was like in the midst of while he was going through, his drama with the being suspended and all of that. And I think he donated about 60,000. So that was I was glad to hear that he supported the family in that way.
Yes, because the family is going to need that money to travel back and forth, and have somewhere to stay when they travel there,
Mhm.
and that can like support a lot of people during the process of the trial and all of that. So she can have family members there. So
Yeah,
big
definitely.
ups to him for that. Like that's a very good deed, especially in the midst of when you're going through something as well.
Absolutely. So shout out to Kyrie Irving for doing that. And just, want to extend our condolences to this family who, suffered a loss of Shanquella Robinson. Just such a tragic loss of a young lady that had her bright future ahead of her.
Yes, and she started those businesses and they became successful. And I believe that was ultimately, I heard allegedly that he tried to start businesses as well, but
Mhm.
his were not successful like hers, and that could be one of the things that made him envious of her.
Oh, one of the friends. Okay.
Yeah, the best friend, the one that was allegedly her best friend, Khalil.
Okay. Yeah, that's just so heartbreaking that, people that you
They
consider,
won.
friends, yeah, from day ones that would, put you in a scenario like this. And I feel like people are not sharing and revealing everything that happened too.
Right. And then the issue of the one friend with the itinerary and him saying he didn't notice the injuries, like a noticeable like knot or something on her head, and then a lip that was busted and an eye that was
Hmm.
had blood in it and stuff like that. Like, how do you not notice the injuries?
Oh, wow. Yeah. This definitely um rough case, but I'm definitely glad that they were able to. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to share. I feel like the impact of social media really helped guide them to a scenario of where they were able to, make an arrest because this story really kind of picked up steam online, being talked about, in the media.
Yes, and this is one of the times where social media, was used for good. Like a lot of times
Mhm.
people complain about social media, but it does have its good aspects in moments like this.
Yeah, definitely. Like even in the mainstream, I feel like because it was such a hot story online, because normally, who would care about a little 20-something-year-old black girl that dies, and these are the type of stories that I like to talk about because they don't get so much attention in the mainstream, and we're sitting here wanting answers for the family, whether it's a black accuser, a white accuser, whoever, we need justice. And people really, picked the story up and moved it. I feel like Tamika Mallory's group, Until Freedom, they did a lot of good work online, sharing it and amplifying the story and things like that. So I was glad that social media, like you said, worked in a positive way for this story.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say, like, I just feel like as Black people, we do need to really pay attention because we will push their white stories that come to like be these big stories. Like, I saw a lot of people that when the girl Gabby Petito
Hmm.
came up missing, Black people were involved in that. But now there are some white outlets that are involved in this, but not as many as like they aren't as engaged as we were with that Gabby Petito story as
That's
well
true.
that happened
Yeah.
like a year or two ago. So we have to we have to pay attention and don't like fall. I mean, of course, it's sad when everybody goes missing, but we don't have to like invest in everything. We have to keep that same energy as people say, because our people
Yes.
matter too. And we want
Exactly.
justice regardless of who, the black or white or whatever. Like, she needs justice, and these people are evil, and I hope there are more people, more charges to come down, because if they
Mhm.
did take money, that's a crime there too, because you stole from a dead person. I don't know if it's a crime in Mexico, but I know for sure it's a crime here in the United States.
Mhm. Definitely. I feel like there should be more charges, and I feel like people are not sharing and being upfront. But I feel like it will come out, eventually. So, yeah, definitely, we'll look for more updates to share with you guys, because this story it's going to be different because of the international piece. It's going to be different.
And then they say the prosecutor, over there, I think his last name is De La Cruz. They say he is a
Hmm.
very like no nonsense prosecutor. He does not believe in cutting you deals to get a lesser amount of time and all of that. They say he's very cutthroat and shrewd and to the point.
Yeah, so that's going to be different in this case. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll share additional updates. I did want to share your information, Mike, about your channel and your podcast. Please share with us your podcast and your YouTube channel.
The YouTube is microphone Mike, as well as I can also be reached on Facebook, also at microphone Mike as well. Microphone spelled the traditional way. Mike is Mike. I will have like more riveting stories, interesting things. So to talk about, like, if you like spirituality, I plan to have like some mediums that talk about life after death, what happens when you die. Just a plethora and a large array of different topics that are very interesting.
Okay, great. And then, so microphone Mike is the YouTube, and then your podcast that's available on Apple. The name of
Yes, real talk, real solutions.
yes, Real Talk, Real Solutions podcast. So we'll have the link for the Apple podcast that you can find, as well as the YouTube. So you can check those out. Please support Mike, guys. He's a content creator. We love to support our melanated content creators. Awoke by accident, guys. So that'll be in the notes. Anything else to share, Mike?
No, just thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here once again.
Definitely glad to connect with you. You're welcome here anytime. And as you have updates with your show, we'd love to share that. So keep us informed, and Happy New Year early to you.
Same to you also.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. Please like and share, tell a friend, and take care. Thank you, guys.